Hi, Melanie Muenchinger here, illustrator for Gina K Designs. Today I'm going to be sharing a new project with you with my newest set from Gina K Designs, Stately Flowers 9. Along with the coloring tutorial that I'm doing and the new technique I'll be sharing, I also want to point out just a few ingredients to your cards that will create a recipe for either a very contemporary or a very vintage look. On this card, I used the same image from my Stately Flowers 9 set, the peony. This is the state flower of Indiana. It's a realistically drawn line art image, but when you put it with clean lines, a lot of white space, contrasting colors, you get a very contemporary look. But here, when you're doing a lot of layering, a lot of aging with your inks to create a nice patina, you're really getting a nice vintage look. Also here you can see that you've got this contrast of the brown with the pink, which really makes it pop. Here you have some nice soothing monochromatic tones and all these different purples. Gives you a more soothing look. But then this brown always, that's really key for creating some kind of worn, aged look, like I said. The products and tools that you will need for today, in addition to the Stately Flowers 9 set, you're going to be using some cardstock. I've got the Gina K Pure Luxury Lovely Lavender, Wild Orchid. You just need a scrap of the Wild Lilac and some of the white, and I will list the measurements for all these mats below the video. The inks, we're going to be using the Gina K Black Onyx for stamping that outline and greeting, the Wild Lilac ink for stamping on our back layers, and then the Kraft ink. And this is just a great ink anytime you want to make a mat look aged. Have some different size blocks here. Again, you don't have to use all different size blocks for your project, but the closer that the size of your block is to your stamp image, the less likely you're going to be to rock and not get the impression that you want. Going to be using a sponge dauber for doing that mat. I have got some adhesive pearls for embellishing, and then I have a die here from the new Birthday Essentials StampTV kit from Gina K Designs. A really versatile die for just making really pretty embellishments for your cards, and I love to put butterflies on floral cards, as you know. Also have some markers here. We're going to be using the HB1, the PL3, and the LV1 on those petals. A little bit of LY3 and DR6 for the center, the CG2 and CG4 for the leaves, and the GG2 on the shadow. And I can't remember if I used the HB3 or not, actually. I think I just have that aside just in case if I want to do a little bit more blending. Okay, so let's go ahead and begin. We're going to go ahead and stamp these first layers, and I'll put this over here as a guide for you to see, with that peony stamp. So let's use this Wild Lilac ink. And I don't want full strength on this. This is going to kind of fade into the background. So I'm going to stamp this off onto scratch paper so that I get just one shade lighter from the ink. But I wanted it to be a little bit darker than the Versamark watermarking ink. So I'll just stamp this off here. And then I'm just going to stamp it at a slight angle here in the corner so that it's going to be peeping out from my colored mat. And now I'm going to put this on the Wild Orchid. Again, I'm going to stamp it off. And I'm going to put it just right up here at the top. And you can stamp all over the mats if you want. I just wanted just a little bit. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to adhere that. Our adhesive. And if you want to do some sponging on these mats with another sponge dauber and that purple, that would be beautiful too. Sponging always just creates a glow on your mat. So it's just such an easy way to add depth to your cards. Okay? Now let's go ahead and we will stamp, done with the purple, stamp the peony and the black, and this is on the layering weight white. Let's put that right there, and I'm going to add my greeting after I do the background because I want that to be nice and crisp. The sponging always will blade it just a little bit. Okay. So the rock and roll technique, or rocking and rolling, this is when you are going to just roll your image, and this works really well with script, onto the pad rather than getting it all over. And what this is going to do, it's going to make little bits of the image skip, and that's what you want here because we want it to look like this is a very old page in a book, like you're just getting just a little bit of that script. And I'm not going to bother with masking off the peony. If you want to, you can. But see, I'm just rolling it around on that. And I'm fine actually with it going over the flower, almost like you pressed a flower in a book and it's just so old that it's just become like tissue paper. And I want a little bit showing through. But I love script for any vintage card. Okay, now wait, before we close that up, let's go ahead and do our sponging. So I'm just going to swirl that onto the pad and then just gently go on those edges. And this is going to soften the script. And you can go as light or dark with this as you want, but it's going to kind of create a glow behind that flower. You don't want to cover everything up. And you can go into the middle a little bit there if you want. Okay? So it's done whenever you think it's done. You might want to go back after you do your coloring if you think you want it to be even bolder. Okay? So let's go ahead and we will go ahead and add our greeting and then we will do our coloring. Okay? So there's our little just a note. And let's go ahead and color. And I'm going to start by doing the shadow first. And this might help you with trying to figure out where all of your darker colors are going to go inside the flower. So I'm imagining the light coming in from the right, which is going to cast a shadow to the left. So we're going to go to the left of our image and we just trace along the edge to create that shadow, just like it's laying right there, just like my hand would cast a little shadow from this light that's over here. All right, and then we will go under the stem and the flower, just right on the side there of that flower. Okay, and we're actually going to use a green to make this flower cast a shadow down onto the leaf instead of the gray, but this is going to bleed right in. So if you want to go ahead and put the gray on there, that's going to blend right in with your green and show you where the shadows need to go here. Okay, let's go ahead and fill in our lightest green on these leaves. So I'm just going to go quickly and I'm just moving in circles so that that alcohol ink blends together. You could use any kind of alcohol markers on this, Bic, Copic. They all work basically the same. So get just a nice solid green on these leaves. And then I'll fill this one in. Now on my petals, I'm not going to make it as opaque as the leaf. I want those to look really kind of transparent. The peony's petals are just so delicate and crepey. Okay. All right, now you're really going to see the leaves come to life when you add this green. Okay, so we're going to trace under that petal right there. And then trace under it right there. See, I'm just going right along the edge. We're going to put just a tiny bit here under the head of that flower onto the stem, and a little bit here. And you can blend this in a moment. And then I'm going to trace just a tiny bit over these leaves, over the veins in there to give it some texture. And then up the middle here. And this side piece is folded over, so we're going to go ahead and fill that in because the light's not hitting that. And then if you want to blend that a little bit with your first green, you can. See, and that creates a nice in-between shade. And put maybe just a little bit more green on this fold right here. Okay, so this is really coming to life already. Now let's use this HB1, and I'm not going to completely fill in these petals, and you can see it has a little bit of a pink edge because I was blending before with some tip-to-tip coloring with that dark purple marker. So I'm just going in and I'm just going around those edges. I'm not filling in the whole thing. You can work very quickly on this. And so I'm putting this just where the petals are all folding over, just a little bit on each one. And you can go back in and add more if you want later, Okay, now let me go ahead and grab this LV one, and this is just kind of a different shade. It's a little bit darker. And I'm just kind of quickly going into all those same areas, just kind of scribbling along. And if you're struggling with really getting your image to pop, if you just feel like it's looking too flat, you're probably not having enough contrast. You really need to be ready to just go bolder and add a color that is just going to really jump out. And that is what creates the light, having the dark with the light. Okay, let me fill in the middle of this real quick with this yellow. And then peonies kind of have a dark center. And I didn't want to use a purple. I really wanted something that was going to pop just a little bit more against those purple layers. So this DR6 is kind of a reddish purple. Okay, now let's add in our deepest purple, and this is really going to play off that wild orchid layer. So I'm going to put these just in those very deep folds, and you can find those from the little contour lines, the shading lines that I have in the image. So it just takes a little touch, and then we're going to pull that out, feather that color, and blend it with that lighter one that I was just showing you, okay? So don't be afraid if this is looking too dark at first. It's going to fill right in, and it's just going to look fantastic with that wild orchid layer. Okay, all right, so let's take this HB1 again, and you just go right over, and when you do, I hope you can see this, how much more fuchsia that's turning just by going over it. So if you have a larger image or you put down more of this color, you want to work in sections so that it's still kind of wet, and it's going to move around even more when you go back and blend it. Now if you want an even more blended look, keep the lighter color in your dominant hand, open the darker marker, and pick up just a little bit of ink there. And you see how you can just pull that right out onto the petals. And you're going to put that right up next to where your dark color is and pull it out onto the petals. And it's finished whenever you think it's finished. So some people really like to blend for a long time. It's really therapeutic, kind of meditative, coloring something in, but you might not have that much time. Okay, and I kind of like how that just really looks watercolored there, not being completely blended. So I'm going to go ahead and stop. And we will go ahead, and I'm just going to put this at an angle just to change it up a little bit. So right about there. And then we're going to do our butterfly that I mentioned. So this is just cut from a scrap of the wild lilac cardstock. So you will need a die cutting machine like the Grand Caliber or the Cuttlebug. It's going to pop right out. Be sure to save that scrap that has the negative area around it, and I'll show you some things that we can do in a future tutorial. And then I just use the wild lilac ink again, and then just stamped it right onto that butterfly. So this script is great for making patterns on your die cut images. And I fold that in half, and I think these butterflies really pop when you give them some kind of body with your embellishments, whether it's a pin or some rhinestones, or, you know, I like pearls. And then we're just going to adhere that with a scrap of the foam. And your card is complete. Just put it right there on the corner. We'll fold it up, and we are done. That is how you rock the vintage look. I hope you enjoyed this project. I hope you will visit my blog, Hands, Head, and Heart, for more inspiration. Subscribe to my YouTube channel and check us out on StampTV for more ideas with all of my stamps. Again, I really love all the images in Stately Flowers 9. Very versatile for a number of different projects. Thank you for watching today.